There are wounds that do not destroy a person. They change the way that person moves through the world. After certain betrayals, people stop speaking the same way. They stop trusting the same way. And sometimes they stop allowing others to come close at all. The ancient world feared that transformation. So instead of trying to understand it, they turned it into a monster story. Some people are not born dangerous. They become dangerous when kindness is mistaken for weakness, when beauty becomes an invitation, when silence becomes permission. And thousands of years ago, the ancient world gave that transformation a name, Medusa. But the story you were told was never the real story, Medusa. Most people remember the snakes. They remember the stone. They remember the horror in her eyes. But almost nobody asks the question that actually matters. What happened to someone before the world started calling them dangerous? Because monsters are rarely born overnight. Most of them are created slowly through humiliation, betrayal, and silence. A person suffers long enough, and eventually something inside them changes shape. And once that transformation happens, people no longer see the wound. Hubsham. They only see what the wound created. Before fear surrounded her, Medusa was admired everywhere she went. People turned their heads when she entered a room. Not because she demanded attention, but because beauty naturally attracts eyes. Some loved her for it, some envied her for it, and others quietly wished they could possess it. And that is the dangerous thing about beauty. The world praises it openly while secretly wanting control over it. People say they admire beautiful things, but often they only admire them when they remain obedient. The moment beauty develops boundaries, admiration quickly becomes resentment. In ancient Greece, Medusa served inside sacred walls devoted to Athena. She lived quietly, disciplined, devoted, careful. She believed sacred places protected innocent people. She believed the gods rewarded purity. But power rarely follows the same rules it teaches others. Power has always had a strange hunger. It notices innocence. It notices beauty. And eventually, it convinces itself that both belong to whoever holds authority. That pattern has existed for thousands of years, and even now, people with power still confuse desire with entitlement. One night, the sacred place stopped feeling sacred. The walls remained the same. The silence remained the same, but something inside Medusa changed forever. She was violated, not by a monster, not by a stranger, by a god. And after it happened, she waited for justice. She waited for protection. She waited for someone to recognize what had been taken from her. But what came next was worse than the violence itself. She was blamed for it. That is the part ancient stories rarely explain clearly. The person who suffered became the problem, while the powerful figure responsible remained untouchable. And honestly, human beings still repeat that pattern today. People are often more comfortable blaming damaged victims than confronting powerful predators. Imagine what that does to someone internally. Not only being hurt, but being punished after surviving the pain. At some point, the mind stops feeling safe around people. And when trust dies slowly enough, the entire personality begins changing around the wound. That is when isolation begins. A person becomes quieter, more guarded, more distant. Not because they enjoy coldness, but because vulnerability no longer feels survivable. And eventually, the version of them that once trusted openly disappears. And this is where the myth becomes disturbing. Because Medusa was not transformed immediately after violence. She transformed after betrayal, after humiliation, after abandonment. That was the moment the real curse began. After enough betrayal, people stop trying to remain soft. Something inside them hardens for survival. And according to the myth, that is exactly what happened to Medusa. Her hair became serpents, her skin became stone, and her eyes became impossible to survive. But here is the detail nobody talks about. Maybe the transformation was never truly a punishment. Maybe it was protection, because after betrayal, the mind often creates distance automatically. It learns how to become untouchable before anyone can cause the same pain again. Think about what her gaze really represented. Anyone who looked directly at her turned to stone. Maybe the myth was describing emotional paralysis, the uncomfortable feeling people experience when they finally confront someone whose suffering they ignored. And eventually, people stopped seeing Medusa as human. They only saw the defense mechanism, the rage, the fear, the distance, which is tragic because many wounded people experience the exact same thing today. Some people become emotionally unreachable after betrayal, not because they enjoy hurting others, but because survival taught them that openness is dangerous. So they become colder, quieter, harder to read. And the world immediately calls them difficult. But what if they are not difficult? What if they are simply exhausted? Exhausted from being misunderstood. Exhausted from explaining wounds nobody tried to understand in the first place. At some point, silence starts feeling safer than vulnerability. The truth is, most people do not fear monsters. They fear boundaries. They fear the moment someone they underestimated stops asking for approval, stops seeking validation, stops allowing disrespect to enter their life. That is usually when people say, "You changed." Why was Medusa dangerous? Maybe the real question is, what happened to her before she stopped being easy to hurt? And if part of you recognized yourself in this story, then maybe you were never listening to a myth. Maybe you were remembering your own transformation.